Blessings and greetings and blessings, blessed souls. We're alive because we're blessed to stay alive in this most existential moment with the intent of being configured to Torah Chaim, instructions of life, Torah Chesed, instructions of kindness, Torah Rachamim, instructions of mercies. I'd like to share you a little piece of a Hasidic discourse that was delivered by the 6th Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rebbe Yosef Yitzhak Schneerson, who was born in 1880 and went to the next level of life in 1950. And this was a teaching that he delivered in the Warsaw Ghetto in 1939, after the Nazis, Yavach Shmam, had already invaded Poland. So one can just imagine the pressure and the fears and the concerns that the Jews had at that time. And this particular leader of Jewish people wanted to share some information to prepare the Jews of that time and for all generations, because it was eventually written down, and there's a tradition that we have from his father. When something is written down and printed into book form, and I guess in cyberspace form now, it has now been recorded for eternity. Whether or not those books will last into eternity, or for some reason they are discarded, or they're burned, God forbid, or they're ripped or torn, or they become beyond usage. The point is, the teachings of Torah have been imprinted into a physical realm. Cyberspace seems to be a little more ethereal than, say, paper with a binding. It still would have that application, in my humble opinion. But even if I'm wrong, this teaching is in book form. So, the 6th Chabad Rebbe, 6th Lubavitcher Rebbe, in Warsaw, after the Nazis had already invaded Poland, we know what their intent was once they were to eventually fully dominate Poland, not just the initial invasion, and got the Polish to surrender. What their intention was not just for the Polish people, for the Jewish people, anyone who was not of the Aryan lineage. One can only think what possibly could have been on the mind of this Chabad Rebbe. And here he mentions the following: that the essence of chuva, of Rosh Hoshana, which is also a process by which we pronounce to the world, we proclaim to ourselves, we proclaim to our neighbors, we proclaim to everyone in our congregation, we proclaim to the Bnei Noah, the children of Noah, all the families of the earth, there is only one king, the one who spoke and everything came into being. That the essence of our movement of getting closer to the Creator should focus on the fact that we are lacking in our love and fear of the Creator, as it should be if we consider ourselves to be in the category of servants of the Almighty. Now, the commandments of love and fear are stated specifically in the Torah. In Deuteronomy, the commandment of love. And it's also in other places in the Torah and in the Tanakh, to fear the Almighty. For love and fear of the Creator are two fundamental commandments which include all the rest of the positive commandments and all the rest of the negative commandments, those things which we should not transgress and break our connection from the Creator. There is the commandment of knowing Creator, and via the commandment of knowing Creator, which Rambam writes in his Mishnah Torah, at the very beginning of his Mishnah Torah, in the first chapter, the 6th Lubavitcher Rebbe wants us to know, is what brings us to the simple, uncomplicated faith in the infinite, the simplicity of the infinite one. Totally. Rambam wrote, as I just mentioned, and I'll say it in the Hebrew and then we'll translate it, Yisor hi-yisod va'amod ha-chochmot, le'da sheyesh sham matzai rishon u'mamatzi kol ha-nimsa, v'kol ha-nimsoyim mishamayim va'arz ama b'nehem lo nimso ela ma'mitas ha'matzoi. The Rambam writes the foundation of all foundations, and the pillar of all wisdoms, is to know that there is a first being. And the word being, we shouldn't get too bent out of shape out of this, because we associate the Creator with, of course, the various holy names, which are representative of the various attributes of the Creator, ultimately to Him Himself. But the word being is to remind us we are beings, we are human beings. There are animal beings, there are inanimate beings, there are vegetative beings, there are plant-like beings, there are mineral beings, but we are human beings. But we as human beings should realize there is a first being who precedes all sense of being in existence. And to know that this first being brings out everything that is going to be. Let it be. As the Beatles sang about. Just let it be. If there's a Creator, let it be. The Creator has decided already what will be. An earth, 6 dimensions, an earth in 7 heavens, that there's up, down, left, up, down, right, and left, all around. Okay? We have to understand that everything that's going to be in heaven and earth and everything between them cannot be found except for this being that brings about everything that's going to be. Now, to Rambam to promote this as the first teaching in his Mishnah Torah, to know that there is a first being, makes the matter possible and empowers us as beings, human beings, to know that we can come to a knowledge and a comprehension. The knowledge is the awareness and the connection, the sense of there's something beyond ourselves, and then to comprehend, to encode it in our own mind, to be more specific, in our left brain thinking and processing, so that the knowledge and comprehension that there is a foundation and foundations, an Amud of all wisdoms from the Hebrew perspective, because Yesod starts with a Hey, and Yesod starts with a Yud, and Yesod starts with a Hey, Va'amud with a Vav, and then a Chochmas with a Hey. The first 4 letters of that brief statement, Yesod HaYesods Va'amud Chochmas, is alluding to the ineffable 4-letter name of the Creator. Now, this 4-letter name of the Creator, the Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, stands way above any limitations that have manifested into the creation from in the context of time and place or space. The boundaries of time is that there's a past and there's a present and future, and space, again, is referring to the fact that there are 6 dimensions and there's 6 dimensions and 4 directions, and there's an up and below. But yet Creator is past, present, and future simultaneously, because Creator is the source of past, present, and future. So when we come to identify matters of this creation in terms of what dimension they're from, is it from the past? Is it from the present? Is it going into the future? What type of space is it occupying? What type of dimensions are they occupying? This is relating to our sense of understanding the light which fills the universe, because we are accessing this light. But the ineffable name of Yud-Kei Vav-Kei is referring to a light which encompasses all of our knowledge, all of our existence, all of our being human, all of our human beingness, all of the essence of what is the inanimate world and the vegetative world and the animal world. And with that being said, we have to have a sensitivity for the world that surrounds us. It's within inside of us, it's outside of us, it's above us, below us. There's a certain nature. And that nature itself resonates through the spelling in the Lashon HaKodesh, HaTeva, is the same mathematical value as Elokim, which we take the kuf and we put it in the hey, has a different sound. I'm not going to pronounce that name because it's outside of a verse. It's the same numerical value, which is alluding to the fact that there's a type of godliness, a type of revelation, which is concealed and covered and imprinted within every fiber of every aspect of the creation, every molecule, every subatomic particle. Every day, the sun shines out into the east and sinks in the west. And it seems the world is just conducting itself as it normally would. And we say that's just part of nature. But when we examine the godliness that's being infused into every moment, and it's encompassed by a level of godliness which is even above the dimensions of space and time, we start to want to, hopefully, if we're sensitive to these matters, develop a love for this Motzei Rishon, this verse being, this creator who spoke when the world came into being. But of course, this type of awareness, this type of sensitivity that everybody went on to say, requires toiling with what? Toiling with our mind. To activate our awareness of these matters. But a person who learns of these matters, and it's just more facts, I mean, after all, we're in the world of information, we're in the information age, might say, okay, but also I can go to mathematics, I can go to science, I can go to politics and find a lot of interesting facts as well. Okay. But we're talking about a Torah perspective to generate a love and fear of Creator, a healthy love and a healthy type of fear. And you can learn more about that in the Rambam and all these places in Tanakh and the Torah itself with all the rabbinical commentators. But in terms of becoming more aware of Creator, as the Rebbe talked about, during that horrible time after the Nazis had invaded Poland, a person is slacking off in terms of trying to really refine their intellect, really refine their consciousness. And this can even affect not just the average person like most of us. Most of us are in the middle of the bell curve of awareness, with those at the top, the truly righteous, and those outside of the bell curve, those who are sunk in thinking that everything the creation is running on a deterministic level. Some call them the Rishoyim, the wicked, because they feel that nothing can change. That in itself is a very evil type of philosophy, to think that nothing can change. Everything as it was will be. And quantum physics certainly will take, issue with the whole idea of deterministic type of theological viewpoints, economic viewpoints we see. We've morphed from an agricultural society to an industrial society to a high-tech society, whatever society, an information society, some are promoting the idea of artificial intelligence society, whatever it may be. Things are not static in terms of development of how humans perceive how society should be run. So too, we should not be static in terms of developing our awareness of Creator. We never reach the highest point because the Creator is infinite, so therefore there's no way of us to get to the highest point. We can actualize our potential as human beings. But the Friedrich Rebbe is saying, even people who are extremely talented in terms of grasping the most refined points of the knowledge of godliness, if they don't toil in this knowledge, they're actually going to ruin their talents as being those who otherwise would have very refined mindsets in terms of how to apprehend godliness. And going back to what was mentioned before, knowledge is what brings you to faith. And that which is one step, one molecule beyond your knowledge, that you can attribute to faith. I can learn all that I can about how to digest my food properly. But that's not going to make me a doctor. I'm reading whatever books, or I can see a video on YouTube. I can see someone's blog written by a doctor or a biologist. That doesn't mean I'm not going to become an expert by no means. I'd have to, there's the idea of apprenticing under someone. If someone's in the medical field, So, again, going back to what we mentioned before, knowledge brings a person to faith. I believe completely, as a Torah observant Jew, that the Torah is true. And the history, the long rich history of the oral Torah tradition about knowledge of godliness, as it was originally revealed in a book called Sefer Raziel, the first book of the creation, which was handed down to Adam after the troubles he had in the Garden of Eden, and which he handed down to his sons, and eventually was the inspiration for which provided Noah, the ability to build the ark, which probably most of you have not heard about. These great knowledges, if we're not we believe in it, even if we haven't learned about it, if we are truly Torah students, as opposed to, say, some who want to negate the oral Torah tradition. And as Lubavitch Rebbe once said, those who will attack the oral Torah tradition or deny it will eventually be shown to be proven they deny the written Torah tradition. Which I want to remind everyone, when you read the stories in the Tanakh and the 5 books of Moses, all of those were oral transmissions, which were chosen to be written down and therefore given put in the category of the written Torah. But again, in order to come to this true emunah, this true faith that we're trying to reach, it comes only through the preface of precisely some sort of knowledge. There is a type of faith that comes as an accepted tradition, which is fine, but it's not the end-all of faith. And that is where there is a subtle difference, I believe, not that I've done comparative studies in different theologies, religious, because I don't consider what I follow to be a religion, because there's no word for religion in the Torah. It is described as Eish Dash Lamo, a fiery law unto his people. And therefore, we are going to speak about it, and speak about it, and speak about it. Again, I ask you to pause and reflect. How could it be that a Rebbe, an Admor, would talk about the lack of service, of love and fear, precisely at a time of great peril to the people living in the Warsaw Ghetto in 1939? Because there are things that even can supersede that which we perceive as the outside world, as the outside reality, now attacking us, sometimes physically, sometimes spiritually, sometimes economically, sometimes health-wise. So, rather than giving a straight-over translation, I gave a very eclectic. Perhaps I was sloppy in a couple places. That's okay. I'm learning in this process as well. But to think about, when's the last time you heard that the essence of returning on Rosh Hoshana, at the very time we're crowning the king, is that we have to reevaluate how much we truly love and fear the Creator. Anyway, may we do our evaluations and reevaluations. May we have a Havachad, one love, Gor Lechad, one destiny, of all of us, but dark Shalom, in a peaceful, pleasant way. I want to remind everyone, I remind myself first, I've got to be good, you've got to be good. We've all got to be good, because the Tevatov Lehetiv, it's a nature of good to do good. Creator waits ever so patient for us to activate this goodness. Let's do it. All 7.7 billion members of the human family experience who are gleaming and streaming, and many are screaming into the creation, and the hatred, and the jealousy, and the competition, which is totally unnecessary, until we pave the way as much as we can, each one of us, as faithful stewards of this blessed eternal earth, for the coming of Mashiach Tzidkenu, our righteous Messiah, who will roar out, Torah Chadasha Mititeitze, reveal teachings of Torah that the prophets of previous generations have never accessed, although they accessed a lot. But that's what makes the Mashiach. He will repair the breaches of the nation of Israel. He will rectify the world. He will instruct the families of all the nations of the earth how to live in unity with one accord. He will rebuild the third and eternal temple, and he will gather in the 12 tribes of Israel. Nothing less is what we expect, and nothing more do we expect? Let's get all ready for those times. But let's reflect on the fact, while we can say the greatest things about the Creator, where are we holding with our love and fear of the Creator? That's a question I'm asking myself. I'm suggesting you should ask that question to yourself as well. Take care, everyone.